Welcome to The Weekly. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Chris.
And this week on The Weekly, Stormlight RPG, Epic Sellout,
okay.
Adventure Time 5e,
Yep.
Ring of Chaos, and Pathfinder now D&D free.
Sure. Okay.
But let's start with this.
Honestly, guys like me can't leave soon enough.
I
was waiting for that. I've been waiting for that. Yep.
It has a bumper.
It has a bumper. All right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you missed a big day last week. Day 300.
Oh, God.
Day 300. So let's look back. So 300 days ago, let's look back. And those were some in the little...
Wow, we're almost up to a year.
Yes, yes. So in the intro, you saw a few clips of the interview with the Three Black Halflings podcast.
Yep.
So Jeremy and Liv endured an hour of corporate babble from Kyle Brink, and I have a little bit of the transcript. So let's revisit.
Jesus.
Let's revisit.
All right. Yep.
This.
I'm ready to do it. I got coffee. Go.
So the question was, naming all of the known kind of personalities and directors and people that are working on D&D. So can you identify any specific positions that, higher ranking positions that have been filled by people, say, racially diverse backgrounds?
Sure.
And here we go. I'm just going to give you the highlights of this.
Okay.
And Brink just launches into his answer. And it's just blah, 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 blah. So you'll see some of our lead designers are not cis men. Okay. And they're coming up through the ranks. They're proving themselves. I should do the Brink voice. They're coming up through the ranks. They're proving themselves.
You're not
They're
going to be able to hold that.
earning their respect. And so then he goes on to, this is where he starts to walk into really weird territory.
All right.
So that's happening more and more. Looks guys like me, we're leaving the workforce, to be blunt. So that line.
Did he name any names in there?
No, there were no names. That was
Yeah.
they're possibly. I mean, and we aren't exactly sure who these people are, but we're pretty sure there's non-cis people,
Right, okay.
somewhere at the company. But that line, guys like me, we're leaving the workforce, to be blunt. So. What exactly does that mean? So does that mean that all of the money he's made from Wizards, he went heavy into crypto, and he and generations of his family will now be no longer working office jobs?
How did you work crypto into this?
What is that? How do you make
it more distasteful?
How do you make? So that doesn't make any sense. I think what he's saying is we want to step away from leadership positions at a company and let people that are actually
Sure.
that match the customer base. But leaving the workforce, that means that he's retiring off of this golden parachute that was going to benefit generations of Brinks. And
as someone who often misspeaks during live recordings, such as this one, yeah, sometimes you say things that is not entirely what you meant.
Right.
Hopefully, you're aware of what you're saying enough to either then immediately kind of correct it, right? Or after the fact, you go, oh man, that's not what I meant to say. And then you go on record, kind of not on record, but you come back and you say, what I meant was
clarify.
This, right? Yeah, clarify. So, but still, what you said.
Yes.
I have to imagine he meant yes.
Getting out of
upper
the
management
way.
positions are right. Hopefully hiring a more diverse.
Right. Or maybe he just thinks that straight white people will eventually become this leisure class that leaves the workforce, and then just they hand over all corporate positions. Yeah, that is the weirdest thing. So that detail I totally missed amongst all of his pandering. And then my favorite line, which we have in the intro, is so it's my viewpoint, honestly, guys like me. You can't leave soon enough from this hobby.
So he said from the hobby.
Yes.
Not from position.
Not from position. But he is leaving the workforce, but he's also leaving the hobby. So we just have to, in this leisure time where cis white men don't participate in the workforce anymore, we also cannot have the hobby of tabletop roleplay. So I guess we're going to
historical wargaming. That's still there, right?
Right. That's right. It's all going to be Civil War reenactment.
Civil War.
That's all we do.
You can wear your overalls there and argue about all the stuff in historical wargaming. There you go.
Yeah, so Kyle Brink does not speak for all cis white men. I
or anybody with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, really. Well. So yeah, we just wanted to revisit that. So and we'll hopefully be able to use that intro a couple more times. Yeah, because he won't stop having to apologize. So
does he apologize at all? No.
Yeah, no, right. Yeah, he just goes on excuse tours. So let's start with something pretty amazing. This was like a product of the pandemic, which is pretty fascinating. So Brandon Sanderson is working on a Stormlight role-playing game and working with publisher Brotherwise. So this will be their first time doing this, but I guess Sanderson's Dragonsteel Entertainment is partnering with Brotherwise. And Sanderson is coming off of a $41.75 million Kickstarter campaign for 3 or 4 books that he wrote during the pandemic. Like, he did a Kickstarter and raised so much money. So what did you do that generated millions of dollars during the pandemic?
Just rub it the fuck in more. Why don't you, right?
No, but I was like emotionally crippled during that whole time. And this guy is like, making tens of millions of dollars.
I'm going to have to look this guy up because I bet he doesn't have kids that need watching.
Yeah, right. Well, this is the author that finished The Wheel of Time.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. So he's got his own properties and universes now, and one of those is Stormlight. So working with Brotherwise, who I guess this isn't their they've done games before, maybe their first tabletop RPG. Boss Monster, the Dragon Prince, Battle Charged. So at the annual, so not only does he have insanely successful Kickstarters, he also has his own convention. So the Dragonsteel Con,
maybe that's what he needed to raise the money for. Okay, anyway.
Right, held in Salt Lake City, is where they announced that they'll be doing this role-playing game. So that was last year. So it's D20 based, but they're playing around with ideas like a plot die, and there's risky and dramatic roles, and they want to do flexibility and character growth and kind of focusing on high-level play. So maybe that fits the setting more. These are maybe very powerful characters, so you're not going to be starting as very low-level rat catchers.
I know very little about this setting or book or whatever, but whenever I hear high-level play in relation to things like Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder or sort of the more traditional D20 based fantasy games, I think ridiculously large numbers, and that's basically all it means.
Right. Yeah,
I would
Yu-Gi-Oh type numbers.
Yeah. Just like, what's your die roll plus 30? Like, why are we even rolling the goddamn die then, right?
Right.
But I wonder if that's what is meant here, or if high-level play means characters will have a much more active role in shaping like politics and large-scale events.
Yeah, they're
in the world,
major players.
Instead of just go clear out a basement full of rats.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yes, also they talked about a skill-based magic system, so an attempt to a diverse range of surge binding skill tests, which are a part of this setting as well. And there'll also be the Cosmere, which they're calling the world, or the universe is the Cosmere. So 9 knightly factions known as Orders of the Knights Radiant. So so it's like interesting classes and stuff. So it'll feel a little bit unique. Shard bearers, assassins, artifabrians. So I don't know.
Say artificers.
Yeah,
all right.
Right. Yes, but lead designer Anthony Fisher, lead writer Lydia Swin, and consulting designer Max Brook all participated in an actual play live stream that they did for charity at this convention. So that was pretty impressive to introduce the game. They did a charity live stream session for the Lightweaver Foundation and the Intermountain Primary Children's Hospital. And so all the kind of people involved, the creators and people involved, participated. So they got to actually demo what they tried to do with the system. So success, some of the terms in the roles: success with complication and failure with opportunity is also part of their triumph and despair system.
Basically, yes and.
Yeah, right. Yes. Right.
Come up later.
But yeah, so that's quite I wasn't even aware of this entire very successful universe that is now spinning off into multiple things. We're gonna have to see a streaming series or animation or something eventually with all this.
Don't give WotC Hasbro ideas.
Yeah, right.
Well, they wouldn't do it because it's not 5e anyway.
Right, but with all the with all the attention, and so he must have a huge number of fans to generate that kind of
or just one very rich one. Anyway.
Or there was one or two that just had huge money. So they're going to be a Kickstarter for this to produce these books was scheduled for next year. There'll be a hardcover version, and they're also this is following, I guess, something that happened this year. just actually finished last month, Stormlight Premium Miniatures. So they already did miniatures for the setting, raised $4 million to produce miniatures.
Well, people like their miniatures.
So I guess the game is to follow. And I guess they announced the game before, so people are kind of anticipating. So now we'll do the miniatures, and then when we finish the game, then you'll have the game. So pretty impressive. I didn't know all this was happening, but yes, millions are being generated, and Kickstarter's getting their cut. They're getting their juicy 10%.
Well, now I just feel bad because I did nothing,
you didn't know $40 million?
80 between, or 8 between the...
Oh, no, it was 40 plus then 4 plus the miniatures. Yeah. So.
All right, fine. Well, I don't feel that bad. All right, so it's only 44 million as opposed to 80 million, right? I could get that, right?
Right, yeah, it could happen, but so pretty impressive. So we'll see, like how far this spreads, and if this is a successful system and a popular setting, how much competition it presents to the walled garden.
Well, as will come up later, I know nothing about this, but I kind of automatically have to give them respect for not using 5e.
Yes, yeah, right, to develop their own system. Yeah. And it's taking them more time. If they would have just said 5e adaptation of the setting, it would have been out this year. They could have cashed in a lot faster. No, it is. And we'll see somebody that decided not to do that later on. So the next thing, speaking of, before the cast, we were talking about little tiny miniatures for war games. So Warhammer did release their updated version of Epic, their Epic 40K. So it's the Legions Imperialis.
Right.
So Horus Heresy setting.
We've talked about this before.
Yes,
a little bit.
Yes. And so these review copies have gotten into people's hands. I think this is Polygon. Talking about this, and they bring up an interesting point. Okay, yeah, they're bringing this back, and they didn't really do it well. I think they did it for the market. They anticipated the hobbyist and everything, but with this kind of scale, they're missing an obvious problem with proxies and things like this. So Games Workshop, they're bringing back their old world, and now they're bringing back Epic, and saying, it can be played on a smaller table, 4x5 instead of 4x6.
Because 4x5 is so much smaller than 4x6.
That foot makes a big difference. And this the starter set that they're releasing, which sold out immediately.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
And they promised that. Like, that's what they've been saying. And they changed their website, and probably all their warehousing and everything, their fulfillment is all doing that now. They said, we are going to sell out every time of everything.
Well, okay, I'm not a business person. I don't know that much about logistics, but I have to think not having to pay for storage is a big cost-cutting measure. So, I mean, that's the whole kind of the point of Kickstarter and other stuff, right? To produce...
Yeah, right. Just enough.
Just enough, right?
Yeah. And you missed last week, there was an article from Spiky Bits where somebody that was hired to dump a semi-trailer full of Warhammer stuff in a landfill decided to just take it to a storage unit and then approach all of the
why would they not
obvious and say, you guys want this, I mean, so it was like 30 pallets of stuff from the warehouse that they're just dumping. Some of it was like connected to old rule systems and stuff, but it was amazing. So they decided, hey, wait, I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to break my contract. And
well, if you're going to do it, make sure you do it and get a lot from breaking that contract.
Yeah, right, because
it'll be your only chance.
They could go after you. They're definitely going after your company. So so you'll be able to recreate all your favorite moments of the Horus Heresy on that tiny little epic scale. But the interesting thing that this article brings up is, so some of these armies to generate or to field a 3,000 point army could require up to 200 miniatures, like 200 bases. Miniatures.
Just call them like elements
not
or
individuals.
Units. Yes.
So that's going to be that's still pretty hefty. And one of the things that they noticed is these little inch-long tanks that they're producing have up to 40 or more individual pieces to assemble.
I think I've read this article, which is ridiculous. Yeah.
So, wait a minute. Okay, so there's going to be some cost saving, but as far as hobby time, you are going to get the tweezers out.
How does an inch-long tank have 40 plus pieces? I don't know.
And so that's like kind of
defeating the purpose.
Yes, defeating the purpose, because Epic is, I think, in the way that they're going to be selling it, it's closer to a boxed game. It's not going to be this like supported huge system that's going to run along. I think it's just they're going to throw as much as they think they need to, but it's going to kind of be like their other, like the Aeronautica Imperialis and the Titanicus. It's going to be just kind of this, we only do so much for it. So it's kind of a limited thing.
Right.
Why would they make
Maybe
it
that's
so,
why they think they can.
I guess,
Because
yeah.
there's only going to be basically like this one box. If you want to play whatever the Legions Imperialis, right? You got to get this box.
Right.
Sorry. Screw you that this little inch-long tank is 40 pieces, right?
Right. Yeah, so the 28 mil scale of that same tank would cost you about $170. So it is going to bring it down to about a $25 price tag for this. But
A tank?
Yeah, for a single tank. So you're still paying, it's still a lot of money because remember, you're going to have to field 200 or more units to actually make this work. And so it's not going to bring the price down. It's not really going to bring the scale down, and it's not going to bring the hobby time down. So what this is going to do is kind of give a little bit unfair advantage to 3D printing models that are a single piece that come off of your printer, all pre-made. You're not gluing anything except for onto a base. So they're really kind of, tempting people to make it as easy as possible and proxy the entire thing. So just get a hold of that rule book and you can proxy everything, because I'm sure it already exists, and if it doesn't, you can still just scale it down to 33% or whatever. So
the thing is, back when Legions Imperialis was first announced, and I saw that it's actually not 6mm.
Right.
It's 8mm,
right,
I think. And my initial reaction was, oh, you made it 8mm to be different from the 6mm. And then someone pointed out, well, okay, yes, but Legions, Aeronautica Imperialis, and Titanicus, whatever they're called,
already
8mm. So like, okay, I less suspicious to just match the existing thing. Still, I'm sure they still did that, so they're not 6mm, right? So like you said, just scale everything up by 33%, right, to hit that 8mm. It's going to run into the problem of, if you want to go play it at a table in an actual Games Workshop store, sorry, you probably can't proxy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right? Yeah. You're right. Okay, you can't bring this proxy.
Right? You want to play at a store? Sorry, you got to use actual stuff. But as someone who just bought like 6 tanks, 6mm scale tanks for tiny Xenos Rampant, right? How the fuck did you get off charging like $25 for a tank that's going to be an inch?
Yes, right. Yes.
The things I bought are like $2 tops, and that's metal. They're metal.
Oh,
right?
wow. Yeah,
white metal, inch-long tank. Anyway, 3 pieces. Right. Anyway, it's
amazing.
Games Workshop.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. I do agree with kind of the, what's the word I'm looking for, opinion of this article, where they may be shooting themselves in the foot with between 3D printing being available at home, even though I don't recommend their service, like Only Games and other places that will print for you. Like, I've seen any number of third-party STL sculptors doing like amazing stuff and doing legally distinct but still obviously inspired by 40K, right? Like, here's your Galactic Knights, whatever, and you're like, oh, cool, it's Space Marines, but not. Right? So Games Workshop has its diehard fans. I don't think this will really affect its pocketbook all that much, but people who are interested, I think, are going to go to other options if they're not already in Games Workshop.
I don't think this is going to bring new people in.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
especially if you got to go. You still need 200 bases to play this game,
right?
On a 4x5 table, right? You're just like,
yeah, because of this, yeah. So they the article compared, Catalyst Games doing BattleTech. No assembly required. They're already on bases. Just need painted. Atomic Mass doing the Star Wars miniature, the X-wing miniatures game. Those are even pre-painted, so you don't even have to paint those. So yeah, I mean, I guess that they want to include as much of the hobbying as possible and make it as intricate and time-consuming as possible. I don't know, but it's odd. So yeah, so that core set, or that starter set that they released, the box set, includes 2 small armies, Space Marines and Solar Auxilia, and 2 Warhound Titans. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's sold out. So, but we're going to see how much of that was just people that want to chop it up and resell it piece by piece back to you on eBay and auction sites. So we'll see. But I thought that was an interesting point, is that they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot by doing that. And now we're going to have a response. It's going to happen next year. I guess the Kickstarter might be happening sooner than that, but we're getting a response then from Mantic. They're going to do their epic scale. It's going to go to Kickstarter, but if they do everything, assembly required, and they come in at a cheaper price point, that could be good. I mean, that could be a nice option because it looks like their rules will be interesting. They're doing kind of a designer blog, and the one interesting thing that they said is there's not going to be any hit points. There's not going to be a hit point stat or any for every model. If you get a successful hit, it comes off the table.
Interesting.
Yeah. So to make a stronger model, you're going to have like armor points or resistance or things that are going to kind of serve that. But if a successful hit means the unit's off the table. So that's an interesting. Yeah, I like that idea. It's very intriguing if they can get that to work.
As someone who was trying to minimize bookkeeping as much as possible for the never completely abandoned, like a card-based war game, right? Yes. Where like, I don't want to put tokens on this thing. I don't want to have dice on this thing. I want it as bookkeeping light as possible. I am curious to see how Mantic does a one-hit successful hit and you're off, and whether like higher armor or higher toughness does that make it feel cool, or is it like just, oh, I failed that, right? You got a 1 in 6 chance to take this. Oh, there's my 1, right? Yes. Does it feel satisfying, or does it kind of feel frustrating?
Right. Yeah, so as we get closer to the, I think it's Epic Warpath, as soon as we get closer to the release of that, the crowdfunding, we'll talk a little bit about that. And they already have their Mantic Vault in place for STLs. So if they go heavy into this, and the one thing I was thinking about, I was listening to some Rick Priestley interviews and talking about
his stuff as badly worded as
he's very articulate man. But an interesting point that he said that he thinks might be an influence from the American audiences is how Games Workshop is feeling this pressure to advance their storyline and keep having things happen to named characters and producing named characters more and more. They're bringing back Primarchs and everything, and how that's like, maybe like a Hollywood or American influence that they really want that. And he misses the old days, especially with the Warhammer Fantasy Old World, where you set this thing up, but you made your own little part of the world. It was all your creativity. And so if Mantic paid attention to that, and because they don't have the lore, they're never going to have the lore, and instead of being this like weird second banana, and never quite capturing people with what they're doing for their storyline, is really focus on that. We'll set the stage, and you determine how these factions work and what kind of weird stuff, and we'll just support that. We may model things, or at least release like STLs and stuff that support some of the decisions that like the fan base made about how these factions operate or whatever, so that you can make your own little corner of the world and feel like this is yours. Because I think that's a thing with 40K and maybe even Age of Sigmar, is you don't feel like you're doing anything that original. And when you see people do really original modeling and kit bashing with Warhammer miniatures, you're like, oh, that's so cool. But that's not in the story. It's not part of, that's you're not playing that.
I think there's multiple ways to engage with the Warhammer hobby. One of those ways is consuming the lore, right?
Right.
Another way, and no way is better than the other, right? I have to think that people who make those awesome models, and I can't imagine kit bashing GW, as expensive as they are. When I see awesome, I'm like, that's awesome. How much did you spend on bits, right? I don't even want to think about it.
It's only $250.
I get like a house for that, right? But I have to think that people who model those amazing non-canon but very interesting stuff, they're either in it for like the modeling, they're playing a different game, right? And the people who want I'm sure there's some overlap, but I'm sure the people who want to know what happens in the story are focused on the lore, right? And I hate that word, right? So I'm not saying people who want a progressing story don't play the game, or people who don't play the game don't want a progressing story. There's some overlap. I imagine the two groups are somewhat separate. Right?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's just, though, it seems like early on in 40K, it's like, make your own chapter, connect it, how are you going to connect this, into this world? And I think that would be much more interesting, and I think Mantic should back away from named characters and trying to establish anything, and just say, we're going to give you this thing. These are disease-ridden monsters. These are aliens. This is robots. What do you do with that?
The thing is, that doesn't sell books. Sorry, that doesn't sell fiction books.
Yes, right. And it's not protectable IP.
Right.
It's not stuff that you license. Yeah, so then you lose all the, because that's what Games Workshop is looking at, is all the licensing for PC games and potential streaming series.
No one comes and says, let's do a streaming series about your generic sci-fi universe, right?
Right. It's with aliens versus robots. That sounds brilliant.
With no named characters, you say, right?
Fascinating. Yeah. Yes. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with the Mantic release, but it seems like this is I don't know, they're not supporting their Plastic Horus heresy that they did very well, so this is going to be another a different scale of unsupported miniatures, so we'll see what happens. But some more disappointment in the tabletop world.
Speaking of IP,
yes, and speaking of IP, so Adventure Time, the RPG, so it's not out yet.
Nope.
And they talked about it this summer a lot, and what they promoted was their yes and system.
Yep.
So they specifically hired a designer, Matt Fantastic, which is a fantastic name.
It is a fantastic name.
From Forever Stoked Studios, to design a original system for them. And it sounds kind of fun. Roll the dice, interpret the results, always keep the story moving forward. There's yes, no, and then there's and, but, and blank.
Right.
And
Yes. When I read this, so I was on Adventure Time kick. My kids started watching it. I found out about the RPG. I made my own. Yes and dice.
Oh, nice,
right?
Nice.
So it's color coded, right, to kind of limit math, and I went with D6s for the skill die that have a different number of yes or no, right, from 1 yes all the way up to 5 yeses, because then after that it's a 6 out of 6 chance, right? Then I used a D12 that has 4 and 4 but and 4 blanks, right?
Right.
So basically you're going to roll a die, a D6 and a D12, and it's going to give you a yes, no, and but result, right? And I don't know why, as much as I like this idea, I don't know why it had to be its own system, right? Like, you're not really... Okay, you can't trademark math, right? But this is stuff people have kind of already been doing.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, it seemed, the article I read, and I'm probably stepping on your toes here,
no.
seemed like it was a perfect fit for Adventure Time, right? Because you're just like, how are you going to measure how strong someone is in whatever, right? Like, that thing doesn't matter. What matters is what happens in the story, right? And I was like, cool, I don't know if I'll buy this RPG. Like, I might just for to read all about the setting and stuff and all these little secret things about Adventure Time. But then...
Right. Yeah, so, they said that this yes and system was meant to, because they're not really going to be dealing with power levels or overcoming combat encounters with hard math. So it's a journey of emotional maturity and self-discovery is basically what the show is about.
Yep.
So that's what they were trying to address. So right now, there's a Kickstarter for a kind of anniversary reprint of Card Wars. And
I'm going to flip the pig.
Yeah, yes, right. And hidden down in the FAQs is, hey, how's it going with the RPG? And then this is where they spilled the beans and said...
This is fairly recent, too.
Yes, right. So actually, it's going to be 5e. We switched to 5e. So when they were talking about it this summer, they're saying, we're going to do this yes and system, and we're going to do a zine that's going to give you some 5e compatibility, so if that's the system you want to use. So they just switched it. So now that's
very quietly.
Yes. So that it's going to be published. Cryptozoic is going to publish it as 5e, and there'll be a zine that has this yes and, because I'm sure they spent a significant development time and paid some money for it, so they better print it. And so a quote from them said, yes, we made the decision to make it a 5e experience based on feedback from fans. That doesn't mean the game shown at Gen Con earlier this year won't be released too, but the main offering upcoming on Kickstarter will be 5e. So we'll see if that we'll never know how much money they would have generated with 5e being minimized, but now we'll see if it's actually successful or not. Because a lot of people are talking about this. It's like maybe the kind of OGL controversy is blown over and people are back to, and Baldur's Gate 3 was very popular, so maybe D&D isn't it's changing. Like people forgetting their minds and their memories are short.
I have no insider information here. I wonder if this was some CEO, whatever, saying,
Yeah.
You're leaving all this money on the table by not making it 5e. Oh, what's the most, just a quick Google search of what's the most popular TTRPG? Oh, it's 5e. Why aren't you using this? Right? And I don't know. Maybe it was fans.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe it was a vocal subset of fans going, oh, why don't you make this 5e, right? So as I said online, after reading this, like, enjoy your homogenized, boring slurry of 5e crap, right? Congratulations, nerds, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so from an interview earlier this summer with Matt Fantastic, he said, I think 5e, I'm sorry, not 5e, I think Yes And is awesome. I think it's great. I'm really excited about it, and I'm having a ton of fun playing it, to a large degree to make the stuff you want to play. But I'm not also so hubristic to feel that this is the best system for everyone, and that everyone's going to say, this is the absolute best way to play Adventure Time. So we still want to be able to have people, the fans of Adventure Time property, to if they really want, say, a crunchier game and really want something in the style of a system they really love, we want to make that accessible to people. So that was the concession, I think, of the 5e zine, and that all just went to hell. And I think it was I think it was probably a Cryptozoic or somebody saying, what's the point in going through with this if we're going to make $100,000 when we could make $2 million?
Yeah.
So, but anyhow, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to talk you into splitting the Adventure Time Card Wars reprint, because it's only $245 for everything, and it only weighs 18 pounds because it's over 600 cards. So the current thing they have going on, Cryptozoic, is reprinting the game that was designed by Matt Hyra and Corey Jones, which was basically, in one episode, they played this little silly game, and they actually tried to make that an actual rule set. I played a digital version of it. I think they made an app version of it, and it is just ridiculous and,
I'm sure it is.
Silly, but they have supported it for 10 years now. And so this anniversary reprint is going to be the 10th anniversary, where they include everything that they've done into one big collector's edition box. Just the cards they're producing are 16 pounds, but they are also producing a cool guy and a dweeb mug, if you need those. So that was from the episode, I suppose. And there's other stuff that they're doing, but it's 12 different decks, 480 cards, and then they're doing a 2 versus 2 doubles tournament, which adds another 164 cards. It's an insane amount of cards, but it's fun that they actually, there's enough interest in it, and it's been supported long enough that they had a successful Kickstarter, so they raised enough money to get this thing reprinted.
Of course they did.
But it's pretty insane. So the FAQ on this campaign is where we found out the 5e switcheroo. Yeah. So that's I don't know. It's pretty funny. And I didn't really realize, because Adventure Time's over, right? So it's still got some fans. Still a lively property.
It does have fans. Well, it was over, and then it had, like, I didn't know about it, like the 4-hour-long kind of little mini movies. And cool. I think Adventure Time Fiona and Cake is like still going on HBO. Sorry, just Max, whatever it is.
Oh, right? Wow.
But yeah.
Wow. Well, still on Kickstarter, we have another, and this is by a company that you have a lot of affection for, Beadle and Grimm. So Beadle and Grimm
just keep rolling with the bad news, why don't you?
Kickstarter, and they are creating a competitive fantasy card and board game, so called Ring of Chaos.
As opposed to Realm of Chaos.
Yes, right, yeah. And they're using the standard 7-point chaos symbol that everybody uses. So. Yeah, so this is their first game. So their little blurb is: existing only in dark rumor for centuries, the ancient seat of chaotic magic has been rediscovered within the legendary Ring of Chaos, a tool of unmatched potential that allows its wearer to summon the chaos gods to do their bidding. So it's a 3 to 5 player adventuring party that each player creates, and it's for I think 2 to 4 players, and so you create with these 4 classes. You create these, and you kind of quest to acquire this Ring of Chaos. Right?
Kind of sounds like Talisman a little bit.
Oh, maybe
a little bit.
It's very it looks like very kind of, it's card and board game. Kind of thing. So there's no it's not a collectible thing. It's just going to be a boxed game. So up to 6. Yeah. So they're doing expansion up to 6 players, and everyone gets a battle mat, and there's acrylic standees for the characters in your party. But of course, they can't stop there. So they're doing a standard, and because it's Beadle and Grimm, and a platinum version, and I was like just bracing myself for the price tag. I'm like, what, $500? What's the platinum version? So the base game, it's all cardboard and acrylic, is $39.
Reasonable.
That's very reasonable. And the platinum one, which includes miniatures for everything and extra, like, printing, holographic printing on their cards and these neoprene mats and everything, $89. So I was
Reasonable.
like, whoa,
okay.
Beetle and Grimm, what are you doing? But they snuck it in there because if you want to add a signature on your premium edition of all the creators, including Matthew Lillard, that's another $100. So they're throwing that in there. But I guess they wanted to be reasonable, because if it was too premium a price tag, maybe the campaign would not have got, there's no entry point. Right. So the miniatures are going to be Sundrop miniatures, so they're going to be pre-sprayed with that kind of directional paint job. You're going to get a little bit larger game board and nicer cards. So, but unfortunately, if you were signing up for the platinum editions autographed, it's sold out. Sorry, the autographing was limited to 500, and of course, you can't personalize these autographs. It's just going to be whatever.
So someone just had a stamp.
Yeah, right. It's just going to be the interns are just going to be signing the names, but there are going to be pins of chaos. There are going to be T-shirts of chaos, and there are going to be trucker hats of chaos, just in case you need.
Trucker hat of chaos.
Yeah, that's right. So this is all thanks to Beetle and Grimm's Pandemonium Warehouse. So there was a cute, little, introduction video by Matthew Lillard, talking about they don't make furniture. They're making a game for the tabletop. They're not making tables. But, this is funny. They're getting into it now. They're actually entering the hobby. Instead of doing this, like, third-party accessories for existing things, they're entering the hobby with their own creativity. So everybody's got to get a piece of it, I guess. Yeah, so we'll see how far this goes. So it's already probably beyond this, but it's already raised $340,000, possibly more than that by now. And you do get an actual physical metal ring of chaos in both sets, standard and platinum.
Right.
So, so I was surprised. I was surprised to see this, because
I'm surprised about the price. Honestly.
Yeah, right. Because we know that they're into premium character-based whiskeys and all that, and their ridiculous versions of all of the 5e releases. So I thought it was going to be incredibly unbearable, but no, not too bad. And I think they're being realistic. They're trying to actually get stuff out there.
$39.99 for a basic board game is kind of your standard price now.
Yeah. So that's good. Yeah. We will see. We'll see how much what they continue to do. And the last
go back to character whiskey.
Yeah, right. So the last thing I wanted to mention is Pathfinder announced that they have finally stripped the last traces of the D&D OGL out of their rule books. It's all gone. But you know what that means? They got to make some changes, because there's things they might not be defendable legally, but they don't want to risk it. So they want to completely separate themselves. So maybe owlbears are going to go away. Okay. True neutral alignment, ability scores. Yep. These things are all going to have to change.
What are they going to call ability scores?
Yeah, we'll see.
Trait scores.
We'll see. So that's an announcement. So there's a little bit of history, which was interesting. The Paizo reaction, we didn't hear so much. I mean, we knew obviously they were very upset because of the orc. They created their own gaming license for this. So when the change to the OGL leaked in January, Eric Mona, the creative officer and publisher at Paizo, said this drove a stake into the heart of the company's release schedule for the whole rest of this year. So we had to figure out what to do, and that pushed them to we're not going to stay tied to this OGL anymore. We're going to do our own thing. So a quote from Mona said, we decided we really needed to take another crack at republishing the core rules, which we started pretty much right away. Within a couple of weeks after the OGL crisis was happening, we started two projects. One was a Pathfinder remaster project, which would align the rules away from the OGL derivatives, and the other was the new open gaming framework. Okay. So now they're releasing these books. So the first
gaming framework, OGF.
I guess Orc worked a little bit better. So the first of the books to be remastered will be the player's core book, and then the GM core will be released. So $60 retail, like $59.99, about $54 online. The player's book is out, and soon the GM's book will follow. So they're changing the names of everything. From mechanics, like flat-footed is going to be changed to off-guard. The Fire Elemental's native tongue, Ignan, is going to be changed to Pyric. There's a lot of like little tweaking. They're going to have to do. Tieflings and Celestials are gone. They're going to be called in one big kind of character bucket called Nephilim. They're going to go with that. So yeah. And another quote from the director. I don't know if there's anything protectable about mushing an owl and a bear together and calling it an owl bear, but that's clearly a monster that D&D puts a lot of cachet behind. So we're going a little bit further to make a distance between Pathfinder and D&D, make it even more clear.
It's called a bear owl.
Yes, it's a bear owl. Yeah, so another thing that's kind of classic D&D. Paizo's been around for 15 years, and so this is kind of a big change for them to move away from recognizable things and kind of flavor things themselves completely. They're moving away from chromatic and metallic dragons because there's a lot of
color and
color
and what.
So I thought this was an interesting approach. So we're going through and inventing a whole bunch of new dragons that tie into the rules of Pathfinder, and that each dragon is connected to one of the sources of magic. So arcane, divine, occult, primal. And so as we continue to write adventures, it'll become much more important as part of the Pathfinder brand, these dragons connected to magic instead of metals and colors and stuff. Sure. Yeah. So, and the last little quote, the problem is there's an erosion of trust at the top level. They caught themselves in an internet outcry and backpedaled almost right away. And who's to say that they won't try it again next year or the year after that? If we have another 7 rule books and another couple of $1 million put into the game, and then all of a sudden we're right back to where we were before. So that's why we made the orc, and we're getting the heck out of here. Yeah, so separating themselves. Oh yeah, and alignment. So alignment has been replaced by edicts and anathema. So there'll be the character's personal philosophy and code of conduct. So alignment in some ways is so culturally ubiquitous that I wonder if it's even a protectable thing at this point, but it's pretty simplistic way of people summarizing how people actually interact and what their belief systems are. Every year that goes by, it feels a little more dated. So we're trying to create a game that is of the moment and appeals to modern players and gamers.
Okay, like I will probably never play Pathfinder again, right? Like the D20 fantasy thing with classes and levels, just not interested anymore, right? But as someone who has to give, I guess, kudos where they are due, okay, sure, yes, completely removing all D&D, even language, anything that might, as you said, probably would be defendable, but it's just like kind of iconically D&D. Like, no, okay, you're cutting all ties, and I think that's the right. Like, I'm anybody, right? I think that's the right thing to do, or at least a laudable thing to do,
and kind of long view or long term. I think that's
because as Mona said, like, hey, WotC and Hasbro tried to pull some stuff.
They're still thinking about it.
Who's to say they're not going to do it again, right?
Yeah, so if we could just read the memos that are going around with the execs, it would be...
Yep, so they need to make sure that they're not going to get caught in another one. So,
Yeah, so one last quote. So Mona said, we had an opportunity starting in January with a lot of players saying, I don't want to play D&D anymore. I want to find a different game. And so Mona says, we wanted to make that game as easy to understand and as inviting as possible. So that's their new mission, is to get people into the D20 fantasy hobby and away from D&D. And it's so funny. I keep forgetting how they had split the market. Like we have 4E and Pathfinder were sharing 50-50 a market, and they lost that completely. So we'll see if they're going to gain any ground with what's happening, and what kind of, because we already know they're moving into some digital tools. It's not going to be as exclusive or restricted as what WotC is doing. But we'll see how they fare in the future making these changes, and hopefully their existing fans don't feel too shaken up by this, that they were like, oh, I'm glad, this is good news, right?
But
right?
I have to think this is basically only cosmetic stuff.
Yeah, I think,
right, like renaming abilities and renaming monsters and dropping monsters.
They're not gonna change the system. Hopefully it has to feel the same, just called different things.
It has to feel like D&D, but be legally distinct from D&D.
Right. So just find and replace all of those terms. Yes. So that's it for this week. A mixed bag of craziness, but
like every week.
Yes, just about. Lots of crowdfunding. So we'll keep up on all of that, and so where can people find you?
On Blue Sky and Instagram, where I'm posting pictures of both my homemade Yes and dice and little 6mm people and pixel art stuff, and
excellent.
How about you?
Well, I am trying to draw my single panel gag cartoon. I didn't do it this week because of the holiday stuff, but I will be continuing. So next week, Wednesday nights, I do a live stream of drawing my cartoon and eating some convenience store food and talking about stupid stuff, but it's a nice laid back hang if anybody wants to sit with me on a live stream. And you can see that cartoon at GoComics, so gocomics.com/domestic abuse, and Abuse Cartoons on YouTube and Twitch if you want to see the stream. So that's what I do apart from this. And if you like what we're doing here with the weekly, you can find everything about that at upturntable.com. And if you want to support us, you can become a weekling.
Yes, the strongest of all supporters.
At patreon.com/upturntable. So, and thank you to the existing patrons. And also, there's a join button below this live stream to become a member of YouTube and get access to the same sorts of things. The only thing you're really going to be missing is the RSS feed for patrons, which the audio for this whole live stream goes onto, as well as the discussion with chat afterwards. And so we'll continue to post the audio for the actual plays on the podcast feed as well. So that's free to everyone wherever you get your podcast. And let us know if that becomes a little bit too confusing, because basically it's just been the weekly episodes have been up there, and now like longer form, 3 hour, 4 hour actual plays are. And if that's something we should actually separate that, then
split the stream.
Yeah, let us know. Split the stream into something else. Let us know if that becomes too messy, but otherwise we'll continue to do that. So that's all for this week.
Yep.
We'll
Later,
see you
mortals.
next week. Bye-bye.